ladies and gentlemen, Nathan Hamilton from the Son of Celluloid show right here at Days of the Dead, and we are talking to Simon Bamford. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Awesome. You are, of course, famous for Butterball, Anaka, working in a lot of Clive Barker's things.
4 Clive Barker-based films, right. Yeah. Very lucky over the years.
Yeah, now, how did you meet Clive? What's you guys' relationship?
I was I was at drama school doing a production of King Lear, and I was playing the fool, and Clive lived nearby. He was an unemployed writer at the time. Right. He'd recently moved down from Liverpool, and he'd set up with Doug Bradley, the Dog Company, which was a fringe theatre company in London. Right. And Clive liked what I was doing in King Lear and asked when I graduated if I wanted to join the company. So that's how we met.
Nice. Now, you've said before that the main character in Books of Blood is based on you. What part of you inspired that?
Simon McNeil. I don't know. I mean, it's not a very flattering comparison, really, because he's kind of a fraud, complete fraud. Whether I always felt I was a slightly intellectual fraud when I was working with Doug and the rest of them in the Dog Company. So whether it was, I think it was more characteristics, maybe. Which ones? I don't know. You'd have to ask Clive that.
Now, of course, you did play Butterball. And I remember you saying in an interview once that originally Butterball had lines.
Yeah, that's right. Perhaps we'd prefer you, impossible. A lot of lines, but they were all plosives, so they're all P's and B's, the things that make microphones pop. And once they stuck the false teeth on top of my own teeth, I couldn't get my lips together. Yeah. And if you can't get your lips together, you can't say P's or B's. Right. So suddenly I was, I know. So they kind of scratched their heads for a while, and then they said, okay, we'll give all his lines to the female Cenobite. So she got all of mine.
Little, what could have been whatever. What would Butterball have sounded like? What voice would you have used for that character?
That's a good question. I always think he was quite slobbery, I thought he was a bit of a lech, of course, and, sweating all the time, and so perhaps we'd prefer you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just heard Butterball for the first time on this show. There you go, bringing you the exclusives. Now, your character in Nightbreed is given to us with very little backstory. We don't really know who this person is, as a lot of those characters are. Yeah. Did you guys, I know he later got more of a backstory in the Nightbreed Chronicles, but had any of that been discussed at the time of the movie?
Not really. It was interesting getting the script, actually, because there was virtually there's a little bit of dialogue in there, but virtually none. But I was in all these scenes, so I talked to Clive about what he wanted to achieve with it. I was very much, Doug Bradley's sidekick. And I think
seems to happen a lot.
It does, yeah, it does. Funny that. I think Doug was in Books of Blood as well, but not as a sidekick, thankfully. I've lost my train of thought now. Sorry, I'm a bit jet lagged.
Talking about the backstory.
The backstory. He was an innocent. Clive talked about the film Death in Venice and the way that this kind of boy was just kind of drifted effortlessly through life. It was interesting also because he didn't have any outward signs of being different to humanity, unlike most of the creatures in Midian. Yeah. And it wasn't until he got taken outside that you see that this person is completely different. Right. I always think him and Babette, the little girl, were probably similar types of Nightbreed.
I've not made that connection. That makes sense.
Yeah,
that really does.
She too changes when the sunlight hits her. So right. Yeah.
Now, we of course all know what happened with Nightbreed, with it being cut by the studio and all. At what point did you know that was going on? Was it when you first saw it, or was there like that atmosphere when you were finishing the movie, or what?
There was a wee bit of atmosphere when we finished the movie because it was running out of budget. Okay. So there was a lot of pressure. You could tell the pressure was building on set. Because it cost a lot of money, but it had a big budget to start with. I think I did hear through the grapevine that there had been problems with it. I think the release was held back, so we thought, okay, what's going on here? But I didn't know for certain all the extent of it until I went to the opening night in London in Leicester Square. and saw it there. Yeah.
Now, I want to get off topic of your film for just a second, because you were living in England during the 80s, and I've recently started doing a lot of research into the whole video nasties thing.
Right.
Can you give me like a first-hand account? What was that whole thing like? Because here I can't imagine that kind of wide-scale banning of stuff. What was the deal with that?
I don't know. There was a kind of backlash against. People were very worried. There was this kind of moral majority or minority that felt that certain films were corrupting the morality of younger people. I think majority of people just thought that was nonsense, to be honest. But there was
very vocal minority.
Exactly that.
Gotcha.
Exactly that.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense with some of the stuff going on today.
Yeah. Actually, all it did was make an awful lot of films extremely popular and must-see.
Made some people some money.
That's right.
Definitely. Now, I was walking around earlier talking about who I was interviewing today, and someone said if I talk to you, I have to ask you about the Hellraiser duck story. What is that?
Yeah, the Hellraiser duck story. When we filmed the first Hellraiser, it wasn't at Pinewood, it was a place called Cricklewood Production Village, which was a tiny little place.
Right.
And out at the front of the studios, there was a duck pond.
Okay.
And for the first few days when we were filming, they were having terrible trouble with the sound because they just get it all set up for this kind of dramatic, tense moment, and suddenly there'd be these so, and it would ruin the cut.
Is there footage of that? That sounds hilarious.
I don't know, probably not. No, it certainly wouldn't have made it into the movie.
Right.
So, and then on the fifth night, strangely, we came into work, and every single one of the ducks had disappeared from the duck pond. It's very, very strange. But when we went to the canteen for dinner, there was duck à l'orange, there was there was Peking duck, every kind of duck you could think of.
I now have this mental image of like the chains reaching out and grabbing the ducks and pulling them back. We have eternity to know your feathers. Now, one other Cenobite question was, I've heard you allude to a Cenobite rap in an interview before.
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
We used to joke when we were sitting for endless hours in the makeup chairs that it would be really cool if because rap was only really just starting in the 80s, really cool if we were to start a band. And Doug, I think, came up with the idea of doing the Cenobite rap. We have such sights, such sights to show you. It would have been fun. I had a friend recently of my brother's who was a top record producer, right. And I was trying to sell him the idea as well that we could sell something we could do, for Halloween or something.
Who's the best rapper amongst you?
Probably Doug. Yeah, probably Doug.
Might have to ask him for a couple of bars.
Concede to Doug. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now with Nightbreed, back to it. Have you been surprised by the the groundswell of support for the Occupy Midian thing, or did you know that fan base was out there, or what?
Because I've been doing the shows with Hellraiser for so many years, it's something that's been gradually growing. And in the last few years, it seems to have exploded. Right. Probably since the Cabal cuts, they found all the footage and stuff. Right. And so it's something I've noticed anyway over the years. I talked to Clive about it a while back, which really delighted him that there might be a chance for this film, which nearly killed him making it, to be honest. Would be refound and re-explored and seen in the way that he finally hoped it would be. Yeah.
I remember back in the day, it was like, that was one of those holy grails you always heard about, the Nightbreed director's cut, and you never thought it'd see the light of day.
It's taken 20, however many years.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Well, we are all very happy to see the light of day, and I'm also very happy to have been sitting here talking to you, sir.
It's a pleasure. Nice to meet you.
You too. And stick around right here on Son of Celluloid for more interviews from Days of the Dead.